Clarence Thomas is one of the most profound thinkers I've ever read, and I've been following his career. I would say I really got interested in it about 20 years ago. And we're going to learn. I learn when I present the news to you. We're going to go into that whole theory on teaching. But welcome to the first double-wide episode. I'm still doing 4 episodes a day, but episode 2 and 3 are being bound together in one of these double-wide, very long episodes. So kick back, pour yourself a beverage. YouTube is not made to deliver 4 episodes a day, which is what I've been doing. So we're only going to do 3 episodes, and the second episode will be a double episode, 2 complete episodes. I'm just bounding them together and posting them once. Some of you are not getting notifications on all 4 videos because YouTube only sends out 3 notifications maximum per channel. So you'll only ever get 3 notifications from me, even if I do 4 videos. So instead, I'm just going to put the middle ones together, and then there'll be hopefully 3 notifications will go out to more of you is the goal. On that happy note, welcome to Double Wide, Doug in Exile. The first one, I can't even say the words because it's all new. We're going to keep changing to keep making this channel better for you. Here's Clarence Thomas. Kick back and let it soak in.
As far as teaching, I love teaching with Judge Max. He does all the work, and I get to sort of just hang around. And he is such a fabulous teacher, and he was, of course, with me my first term on the court. We drew him back from the University of Texas Law School, where he was employed to teach it, to help me during the second half of my first term. And that was a brutal term.
His first term was brutal because of people like Joe Biden, who set him up, which is what Clarence Thomas called during his review when George H.W. Bush put him in office, appointed him. He called it a high-tech lynching, is what Joe Biden put him through.
As far as students, when I was in law school, one of the things that I did not like was it seemed like most of the professors were too important to actually care about students. And there were things that made no sense to me in law school. It was as though you were told what to think and you regurgitated it on exams, and you were not encouraged to do the work and think it through and arrive at your own views about that.
This is part of why I stopped being a university professor. I used to teach at Houston Baptist University. I got my master's at Cal State Fullerton in California in illustration. I taught screenwriting, graphic novels, storyboarding, animation history. And after a while, I just didn't like it. Why? Because I love educating students, not having them, they're just taught to just go for grades and not actually learn material or learn to be a thinker of their own. And I wanted to turn them into creative people who thought for themselves and made things. And the university system, I just felt like it wasn't working. So I did not enjoy teaching because I actually like to teach ideas, not give out grades.
And talking to then Professor Max at GW, I suggested, what about doing a course that actually tries to dig through cases and find out what the dispute really was about? Or who were the people? What were they upset about? What happened to them? What happened to them afterwards? And of course, he was so generous that he was teaching all these courses. He was acting dean at GW, and he agreed. And it's a lot of work. But then we did that for over a decade at GW. And after Dobbs, and I mean, I think we were tolerated there. I know it's your alma mater. We stopped for a couple of years after Dobbs, after some unpleasantness. And I missed it, to be honest with you. I missed teaching with him. I missed the students. There's nothing like the excitement, seeing students figure it out for themselves.
This is profound. He loves people. He loves regular people. I'll get into that a little bit later about where you can find out more about him. But I love listening to him, and he loves the students. He loves people.
they were told something about a case, and when they dig into it, it's sort of like, again, the originalist stuff. When you dig into it, perhaps some of the doctrines that we use now to dominate law may not have a basis in fact, may not be as forceful when you actually take a look at the case, the context of the case, what they were really arguing about. You ask yourself, perhaps we should, or at least for us, we should do a course on what really happened.
He's talking about specifically about the gay marriage case, that he didn't, when he goes back and looks at it, he's one who wants to go look at it again and says it was founded and decided on wrong legal theory. He was also the one that went after Roe v. Wade after it was established since 1973. He just didn't believe it stuck. He just said it was founded on bad legal theory. Even Ruth Bader Ginsburg agreed with that it was, they found a right to abortion in the right to privacy.
And I also thought that students should have a vested interest in it, and they should teach the courses. They should take the lead in courses. They should not be led. They should be an equal partner in this adventure.
Now that alone is profound. We're going to get to more profound thoughts from him. But the idea that the kids should teach the course, why? Something I learned as a professor is when I taught the course, I had to learn all of the material and know it forward and backwards. So if you have a student teach the course, they actually have to learn the material and know it forward and backwards. Same thing when I do a show on Clarence Thomas. As I present stuff to you, I end up learning so much and I go, I don't want to be the only one that learns. I want you to learn from the same wise Ben Kenobi Gandalf as I did. Now, we're going to keep expanding on legal theory. It's not going to all be studious stuff. We're going to have a lot of fun too. But he's so profound that I think you guys have to know the foundation of where our laws come from. Why is the trans issue such a big deal? They're going to go into the legal theory on this stuff. This is all posted by Carrie Severino, who I follow her again. She's a brilliant kind of legal scholar journalist that I like a lot. And she posted all these Clarence Thomas lectures.
I don't think that I have the gospel, and I don't think that any of these cases that have been decided are the gospel. And I do give respect to precedent, but the precedent should be respectful of our legal tradition and our country and our laws, and be based on something, not just something that somebody dreamt up and others went along with.
Which is, again, that's how he describes gay marriage.
You've got, let's just take, for example, I think, do you think that Plessy was right? That was a precedent for almost 7 decades.
Right.
Or do you think you should have just followed it because it was already decided?
That's Plessy versus Ferguson.
Or do you think it somehow violates, it's so wrong that it needs to go?
So we've talked about the legal idea of stare decisis, that is, it's been decided. And should they follow a law that's been in place for 40 years or 30 years or 10 years or 100 years just because it has been the law for so long? We're going to get into more because the best Clarence Thomas clip I saved for the end. We're going to go into some other theories on what is coming to the Supreme Court. This, again, is posted by Carrie Servino. Here she's just talking about some upcoming legal classes. This is a 4-minute clip.
So there are 2 cases the court has taken cert for this term, one coming out of West Virginia versus BPJ, and then another out of Idaho called Little versus Hecox. And both deal with cases where there is a male athlete who identifies as a female who wants to compete on a women's sports team. And both of these states are among the 27 states that have laws that prohibit this. In West Virginia, their law specifically says that biological females only may compete on women's teams. But if you're a biological male, you compete on male or co-ed teams only. You can't compete on women's teams. Women actually can compete on male teams or on co-ed teams. So
that would be if a woman has the merit to make it to a football team, then she would be allowed to play on a male football team.
The law itself recognizes what I think most scientists would acknowledge that there is a distinction between the way that men and women are able to perform in athletics. And I think common sense, and anyone who's a mother of a female athlete, or frankly either athlete, can probably attest to that as well. And this is a similar law, again, in Idaho. It's the policy that's now been adopted by the U.S. Olympic Committee, the NCAA, and the World Athletics, which is an international track and field organization. That's, in both of these cases, involve track and field athletes. So the facts are slightly different in each of them, in that in the West Virginia case, we have a high school athlete who actually has been involved in this litigation since middle school, whereas in Idaho, it's a college level athlete. And the decision at the Fourth Circuit in the West Virginia case involved both Title IX and the Equal Protection Clause. While they both were involved in the Idaho case, that was really just decided on the Equal Protection Clause. So in a sense, the West Virginia case has more of the pieces involved here, which is important because there's a chance that the Idaho case is going to be dismissed, and the court will not consider that.
So what's the big deal with that? Title IX versus equal protection. Title IX just says women, can play in sports. That is, it's about their biological sex. And then equal protection comes in because they're saying that a trans athlete, if they're prevented from being able to play in a sport, then they are not receiving the equal protection that everyone else should get. So are they a class that deserves equal protection, that is equal standing as a trans person, interchangeable with a biological woman?
Let me just quick give you the rundown on what was going on in West Virginia, and then I'll talk about the likelihood of what happens with the Idaho case. In West Virginia, we had a circumstance where, though the district court said that men and women are distinct and they're not comparable with respect to sports, the Fourth Circuit disagreed 2-1, and they said that this law discriminates, facially discriminates on the basis of transgender status. Now, it's challenging because Title IX prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, but in and of itself, it contemplates distinctions on the basis of sex. And so the court's going to have to grapple with the idea of what are we really looking here? Are we looking at sex, or are we looking at gender identity? And in a law that facially doesn't address gender identity, can that nonetheless be discriminating on the basis of gender identity?
And this one, I watched Gorsuch come out on the wrong side of this and said that trans is not a gender identity, but a sex, is kind of why I disagree with his particular opinion on this. And I believe it's going to be reversed. Now, just so you know what happened, at the state level, both Idaho and West Virginia passed laws that said only biological women can play in women's sports. So a biological male who had the identity of a woman could go in and dominate all of those sports. They made it illegal at the state level. They voted on it. Well, then one of their higher courts within those states reversed it and said it went against Title IX and it went against equal protection. So both of these cases are now going to go up to the Supreme Court, and Clarence Thomas and the gang are going to have to make a decision. They have not made a Supreme Court decision on it yet. They've said that Trump has the right to, as a president, to make his presidential order. So that was a hint when they said he's allowed to block biological males from playing in women's sports. He's allowed to. And the same with the military. They gave him that right. That is not settled, though, precedent for all of America and all the rest. This one, if this one goes up to the Supreme Court, this West Virginia and this other case, it is going to set it for all of law. And I hope they settle that trans people are not a trans, that is a man with a female identity, but a biological male, is not interchangeable with a biological female.
This loops in a lot of questions that the court has not come to a complete conclusion on, but that other circuits have, including, first of all, whether the concept of sex is something that's objective or subjective itself. The Supreme Court has talked about it as an immutable characteristic and as a obviously protected class.
Okay, so hold on. This is going to be important. If they say it's an immutable characteristic, not trans ideology, but biological sex, then you will not be able to legally say that a man can have a baby, a man can have a period, or a woman can have a penis, which you've heard those things around. So they have to define that first. And this is a huge deal. This is why when he appointed Ketanji Brown Jackson, and remember Marsha Blackburn asked her, what is a woman, in her hearing to see if she was going to make it on the Supreme Court, Ketanji Brown Jackson said, I can't answer that. I'm not a biologist. So that was a hint to all of the Democrats that she is not going to make a claim on biology unless an expert, says what it is.
Whereas there are now several circuits that say have basically approached it as if it is that sex itself is a subjective and or mutable characteristic. So that's going to be one potential area to go. But the biggest question for how we analyze this is transgender status going to be considered a quasi-suspect class? That's something that the Fourth Circuit and the Ninth Circuit in these cases did find.
That it's a quasi-suspect class, meaning it's suspect that people are treating trans as anything less than a biological sex. And so if it's quasi-suspect, right? So that's why those liberal judges said this is quasi-suspect in that we believe you're discriminating against them. That's the suspect part of it.
That's a split with the 10th Circuit and the 11th Circuit. So that this is obviously part of the justification for the Supreme Court taking it. And the Skermetti case last term, we have 3 justices on record, Justices Barrett, Thomas, and Alito, saying, no, this is not a quasi-suspect class.
Barrett, Thomas, and Alito have said that trans is not a suspect biological sexual class. That is, it is merely an identity and a personal preference, or whatever construct it is. It does not belong. Then you're not discriminating against it immorally if you say they can't play in a sport. See where this is going? This is all the theory that you're all going to see when this case blows up, and everyone else is going to do videos on just the political surface. And we have the foundation of what drove Clarence Thomas. This has huge implications, including, now here's Jimmy Kimmel. I'm going to give you a practical example of Jimmy Kimmel here. He's cracking jokes at JD Vance here when he got back on the air. This is one of his comedy routines he did on the air. He made fun of JD Vance for having long eyelashes, saying that he was like a spokesperson for Maybelline.
Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds.
Vice President Maybelline. And then later he says that you're going to be doing YouTube endorsements and tutorials on applying mascara. Why am I bringing this up? Because we've been told for 10 years that if I make a joke about a man cross-dressing, a man wearing mascara or a man wearing lipstick, if I make fun of him just for that I am causing transgendered people to commit suicide. You ever hear that argument? I hear it all over the place. This is part of why they called me a transphobe, and I lost lots of work in Hollywood. That because if you make a joke about a trans person that is a man wearing mascara, you're causing a trans person to commit suicide. You're a killer and you're immoral. So why does Kimmel, who's a liberal, pro-trans, feminist liberal, why is he allowed to make a joke at JD Vance for having long, effeminate eyelashes or thick eyelashes and imply that he wears Maybelline? Is he not making fun of trans people and causing them all to commit suicide? Why does he get away with it? Because it's a two-tiered system of justice. I can't make fun of them or I'm a homophobe. He can make fun of JD Vance for cross-dressing, wearing mascara. I'm not saying JD Vance does wear mascara. I'm only saying he made the joke that is supposed to be so insensitive that a trans person just crumbles and falls apart and jumps off a building. That's what we heard. So I'm just showing how this plays out every day in culture, and I see it every day. Anytime you're dealing with trans idea. Bugs Bunny used to dress up as a female, and it was funny. He'd go and seduce Elmer Fudd or whatever. Milton Berle used to dress like a woman. It was always considered funny. Here's the last clip, which is my favorite clip, again, posted by that Severino, where Clarence Thomas tells you where his judicial theory came from and how he was taught by nuns.
They wanted us to succeed, and the only way to do it was to demand it. And one of the things that they did was and they also saved us. Remember, you had segregation. They adopted the Confederate flag as the state flag of Georgia, I think in 1957 while I was in grammar school. So they just put the state seal.
He was raised in Georgia. He worked barefoot in an oyster farm out in the mud. He almost froze to death in some of his apartments. His daddy abandoned the family. He was raised by his grandparents. I'm going to tell you guys, this is one of the most profound people, Americans, I've ever known, is Clarence Thomas. I don't know him personally, but I read his book from 20 years ago. And it's called My Grandfather's Son. He's calling himself his grandfather's son. Some of you are grandparents. You had to raise your grandkids. If a kid abandons them or isn't a good parent, his grandparents raised him
on a Confederate flag. And the nuns, those women were the backbone of sort of our religious world. They were the heart and soul. They were the ones who just shielded us, who made sure we did not ingest the nonsense that we were somehow inferior. And it was religion-based. It was in God's eyes. And we are all made in the image and likeness of God. There was no way what man judged us to be could permeate or could change that.
Whoa, he brought up the G word, the God word. He's preaching. Where's the separation of church and state? He's saying, though the law may get things wrong, the nuns taught him there's something above the law. He's made in the image of God. And there's an expectation. It's not just, oh, I get all the rights. He's going to imply there's work to do.
And so you were defended against what was around you, but you also had the responsibility of using all of the talent that were God-given. So you were required, not only as a matter of just school, but as a matter of faith, to use all your talents. And if you were given 10, you had to use 10. This was a constant. And so it was demanded of us that we do well. So and my grandparents, who were not educated, my grandfather had 9 months of education. My grandmother went to the 6th grade, such as that was. They went to these one-room schools, and they were all on board. Education was central. The nuns were always right. There was no reason ever to complain. No good would come of it. So I give all the credit to them.
He gives all the credit to the nuns. I just think he's the greatest Supreme Court justice because he has the greatest background. And you heard me rip on the Catholics yesterday with the Pope, and I have Catholics in my audience. I wanted to show you the most profound Catholic I've ever read. Hardcore Catholic, Clarence Thomas, raised by nuns. He gives all credit to the nuns that raised him and protected him from a racist Georgia South. I'm going to share one last thing with you. This is just for me, guys. It's my favorite prayer ever. And I first heard Clarence Thomas talk about it on the Laura Ingraham show back in 2009 when he was being interviewed about that book, My Grandfather's Son. If you haven't read it, read it. Get the audio book even, and he reads the book to you. It's profound. I'm telling you, when you hear his story, it's one of the great American stories of his upbringing. But he talked about a prayer. He prays this Catholic prayer called the Litany of Humility. The Litany of Humility. Every day before he goes to work on the bench. He's also one of our most humble Supreme Court justices. When he has time off, he drives a giant motorhome all around America and stays in motorhome parks and mixes and meets with the common man, the common people. He doesn't go and do all the cocktail hour that the other judges do and get influenced by Washington, D.C. elites and powerful people. That's not what he does. He's an amazing man. I don't know if I can even get to this prayer without crying like a baby because I'm a big wuss on this, but it's the most profound prayer I've ever read. And so I read this often too. But this is how Clarence Thomas stayed humble on the Supreme Court. And now this is the first time many of you will have heard this, the Litany of Humility. Oh, Jesus, meek and humble of heart, hear me, from the desire of being esteemed. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the desire of being loved. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the desire of being extolled. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the desire of being honored. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the desire of being praised. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the desire of being preferred to others. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the desire of being consulted. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the desire of being approved. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of being humiliated. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of being despised. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of suffering rebukes. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of being calumniated. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of being forgotten. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of being ridiculed. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of being wronged. Deliver me, O Jesus, from the fear of being suspected. Deliver me, O Jesus, that others may be loved more than I. Grant me the grace to desire it, that others may be esteemed more than I. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it, that in the opinion of the world, others may increase and I may decrease. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it, that others may be chosen and I set aside. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it, that others may be praised and I go unnoticed. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it, that others may be preferred to me in everything. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it, that others may become holier than I, provided that I may become as holy as I should. Jesus, grant me the grace to desire it. That's the litany of humility. You pray that every day and you will change. And it has changed me. Now you know a little more about Clarence Thomas and the Supreme Court. If you like this material, make sure that you subscribe. Don't hang up yet. We got another episode in the double wide. I'm Doug in Exile. Hold tight. Welcome to the second half of the double wide, double episode right here on Doug in Exile. JD Vance is absolutely hammering Joy Reid. What about ingratitude? Ingratitude is the key to unhappiness. If I wanted to make you unhappy, I would say stop being thankful about anything you got. There's no quicker path to being a grouchy, unhappy person, as evidenced by Joy Reid.
And I mean, and as somebody who's, my parents, my father was from the Congo and my mother was from Guyana. And so they were the immigrants who came here on purpose and they got the rude awakening. My mother got the rude awakening, like, ooh, it's racist here.
Mother got a rude awakening like, ooh, it's racist here. They came from the Congo and Guyana. And their first response to America, having flushing toilets, penicillin, free health care, welfare. If you get the entitlements, you can make about $50,000 a year worth of entitlements without working in America. And her response is, oh man, this place is racist.
That's weird. For some reason, she was like, told me, why go to Bristol? Yeah, she's like, they didn't tell me this is the land of opportunity, but not for me. It's so weird. But I am familiar.
They were told it was a land of opportunity. Holy smokes. You know what? I don't have to wish anger at Joy Reid. By the way, this was posted by JD Vance. I'm going to get to it in a second. I don't have to wish hatred on Joy Reid or punishment or revenge on her at all. Living in that head and walking around in life is the worst punishment I can think to give to Joy Reid. I'm a very grateful American. I am thankful every day for anything I have, any molecule that makes me up. I thank God and I thank my country. My dad taught me that. Doug, if you were born in America, I never want to hear you complain. If you were born in America, go tell some woman in a burqa in some other country, go tell her you want to switch places. My dad taught me that. Like, no complaints. Every molecule we have. The worst punishment is for Joy Reid. The most hateful thing, the most meanest thing I could say is for her to walk around in her head for the rest of her life and believe this. She is miserable. What a miserable cuss. Here's the end wokeness quote. Joy Reid, when my mother came from Guyana, she realized it is not a land of opportunity for people like us. Brown people. Guyana, average salary, $5,200 a year. Joy Reid's MSNBC salary, $3 million a year. This is a question to my white people. It's actually a two-part in my audience. Would you like to have Joy Reid's $3 million. How many of you are making more than 3 million? If you're making more than how about if you're making less than 3 million? In fact, some of you are probably making less than a Ghana salary of $5,200. I know some of you are in abject poverty, and you'd give anything to have that salary. However, how many of you would trade your life for Joy Reid and walk around in her head if I paid you $3 million a year? How many of you would make that change? To roll around with Joy Reid's attitude, but I'll pay you $3 million a year. Here's JD Vance's actual comment, which I think this is brilliant. I love when our leaders lead with wisdom. We're going to do a lot of JD Vance on this one because, he's going to be our next president. Trump is letting him go out and do all the marketing on this continued resolution and hammering the Democrats. He's letting JD go out and do all the marketing on this. JD Vance says, Joy Reid has such a good life in this country. It's been overwhelmingly kind and gracious to her. She's far wealthier than most, yet she oozes with contempt. Ilhan Omar, the same thing, came from Somalia and has nothing but hatred for this country. I don't mind if an illegal or an immigrant comes here, makes it. Elon Musk, is a immigrant here. I want you to kick butt. But to show ingratitude, like the La Raza people that are waving Mexican flags, and then if I deport them back to Mexico, they're calling me a racist for sending them back to their country. They're calling me hateful, yet they wave that flag that they do not want to be deported to. Does that make sense? JD Vance, my honest, non-trolling advice, very helpful, and I agree, this is not trolling, to Joy Reid, is that you'd be a much happier person if you showed a little gratitude. JD Vance from Hillbilly Elegy was raised in dirt by a crack-addicted mom. Never met his dad, came from dirt, and made his way through college into the Marine Corps, straightened his life out, and is now the Vice President of the United States, and will be our next president. Probably one of our most successful presidents from the lowest position. Greatest gap. I did the first half of this episode had Clarence Thomas, probably the lowest Black to ever have the highest achievement by any Black in the country. So Clarence Thomas, biggest gap. JD Vance, probably the largest gap. Joy Reid, huge gap, coming from Ghana, coming here making $3 million a year, huge gap. But she hates our country and calls it racist. That's the key to unhappiness. Here's a little more on the Democrats. We're still expanding the narrative on the shutdown and on all of their messaging.
Really, this is a radical Democrat shutdown for radical Democrat reasons, driven by a radical Democrat, Chuck Schumer. And the Schumer shutdown means that, as per usual,
Wait, Schumer, steered by AOC. Get on message, Brooke Rollins, Republican. You didn't bring up AOC.
Go, right? It's putting illegal aliens first. It's opening the borders. It's giving benefits to those who cross our border illegally. It's weakening national defense. It's abandoning our farmers. It's sort of one thing after another with these Democrats. And here we are again. I mean, to your point, we've, done this 13 times. We've had a clean CR. The government has continued. Negotiations are fine. Our vice president said that yesterday, willing to always negotiate. But to hold our farmers hostage, our mothers and children hostage under WIC, all of these government programs are coming to a screeching halt, many of which are administered by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The Democrats they've completely lost their mind.
They've lost their mind. That's good branding, I think. Here's JD Vance on, this is a long lot of words. We're doing learning mode today about how exactly the Democrats end up funding illegals because money is fungible. Take the money from one place, put it in another. He'll explain it right here. JD Vance, this is important. Money is fungible, and it's why the Democrat and media lie that healthcare is not going to illegals is so preposterous. Consider, for instance, two state medical programs, Ohio and New York. New York gives Medicaid to illegals and Ohio does not. When the government gives billions of dollars to New York for Medicaid, that frees up state money in New York that can then be spent on illegals. It's like if you give a mobster $100, but he promises you he won't spend the money to buy a gun and commit a crime. Well, he takes the $100 you gave him and buys food. And then he takes the money that he would have spent on food and uses that money to buy a gun instead. See how that works? This is what money is fungible means. Additionally, because medical services are limited in supply, when an illegal accesses healthcare, it drives up the cost for everyone. So New Yorkers are paying a higher price for medical services, and the federal government is subsidizing those higher prices. Money's fungible. So everyone in the media, from George Stephanopoulos to Jake Tapper, repeating these Democrat talking points, is engaged in the Democrat propaganda war. And that's been the theme of the show this week. Who's going to win this propaganda war? Democrats shut down the government to give health care money to illegal aliens. It's really that simple. And this is the tweet that JD Vance is retweeting. Here's how it works. Federal dollars go to a Democrat state for health care. And since money is fungible, they then move the state dollars over to fund illegals, which is made possible by federal dollars filling the gap where state dollars should be going. So he's answering Chuck Schumer, where he says this is a lie. Not a single Democrat dollar goes to providing health care insurance for undocumented immigrants. Not one penny. That is a lie because money is fungible. You're taking it from one area, putting it in another. That's all. Here's Greg Price. The shutdown gets even more ridiculous when you realize that the health care that Democrats are claiming to be fighting for are extensions of Obamacare subsidies from the COVID era that allowed wealthy people to be eligible for them. Guys, even the wealthy people are getting health care in America. If you were born in America, I'm going to go back to the first thing that JD Vance said about Joy Reid. We owe God a huge thank you. We owe our founding fathers a huge thank you. We owe Donald Trump a huge thank you. We owe our fellow patriots a huge thank you. Our parents for inculcating values in us, even from people outside this country. Good parents, the Catholic nuns, you saw Clarence Thomas thanking them. He didn't go and thank the high-end professors and the millionaires and the politicians. He went back to his roots, to what actually changed the trajectory of his life. I want you guys to meditate on that. Think about who got you here. What do you have that you have not been thankful for? I want you to be thankful for it because I want you to be happier. Doesn't mean that you don't suffer. The best thing a suffering person can do is be thankful for what he has. I'm Doug. In Exile. Subscribe.